when the intuition kicks in, it's more about the knowing and the peace that comes with the knowing, because you literally can lean into and feel a sense of calm, peace. And also, believe it comes to as you practice it and pay attention to it, because I feel like there's always an inner voice and it either helps you or holds you back.
Welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. I'm so glad you're here listening in as I get to the heart of the matter with the world's leading experts and authors in personal growth, transformation, positive psychology, and more. If you're a change maker, a cycle breaker, a revolutionary envisioning a more beautiful way to live, work, and play, well, me too. I'm your host, Ryan Watkin, and for the past decade, I've been alchemizing challenges to find the calm in the chaos. I believe we can change the world by starting at home in our own minds and hearts. And my hope is that these conversations are a light on your path. Let's go, wild ones. Hello, loves. Welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. This is Ryan, and as always, I'm so happy you're here. Today, I am joined by Shā Sparks. First of all, what a name. I should have complimented her on her name. Shā, I love your name. So this conversation is super inspiring. I said at the end, I could talk to Shā all day. We went so many places, and let me tell you a little bit about my amazing guest. Shā Sparks is a fearless communicator who helps leaders break through self-doubt, fear, and that negative inner voice and turn it into unstoppable confidence and purpose. She helps transform fear into fearless action that sparks leaders to lead with intention, resilience, and empowerment. Shā is the CEO, Chief Excitement Officer of Sparks Fire International. She hosts multiple podcasts, like her signature podcast called The Shā Sparks Show, along with being a co-host on the Underwired podcast. She's also a certified fearless living coach and trainer and author of How to Get Your Voice Back and the co-founder of The Maker's Machine and the Firestarters Media Project. Shā's audiences and clients experience more confidence, amplified emotional intelligence, and the spark that ignites her fearless action. Auntie Shā to her friends and kids, she's also an expert sunrise phone photographer and a rookie kayaker. Most importantly, she empowers others to confidently use their voice so they can step into their fire power. This conversation was very impactful, and we got to weave a bunch of different topics in throughout. Of course, we talk about leadership. We talk a lot about fear and the differences between the different kinds of fear we feel. We talk about somatic safety, sending safety signals to our body. We talk about dreaming big and so much more. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I did. If you have a friend who needs a little inspiration, then text them the link to this episode and share the love. Thank you for being here. As always, I will talk to you guys soon. Let's jump in.
Please note, the opinions and perspectives of guests on the Raising Wild Hearts podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Ryan Watkin or anyone associated with the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Hi, Shā. Welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're here. And a topic that I love unpacking is fear. And I know we're going to get into a lot of fear today.
Yeah.
And the place that feels right for me to jump off is to talk about what kind of fear are we unpacking? Because I have this sense, and I have this lived experience, that some of us get fear kind of wired into our nervous system. So we become like nervous, anxious, like worried adults. And then I have a sense that there's this other type of fear that's like, ooh, I really want to do this big thing and it feels right for me, but ooh, I'm really scared to be seen or scared to put myself out there, scared of failing. And I feel like those are two different types of fear, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong and let's like weave it all together.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is emotional fear and possibly a mental fear. And then there's a physical fear. But they all live inside the brain of a little place in the middle called the amygdala. And brain, you are correct. It's in our DNA. So a lot of times we can have a fear passed down from a generation. In fact, they just have done so much research that because when our grandmother is pregnant with our mother, she has in her ovaries, our mother already, our egg that we came from, that whatever fear our grandma is experiencing in her life, it is transformed into the DNA, into the cells of her child, into the ovary and the egg of us, which is like mind blowing. And I'm sure you didn't want to go there, but that kind of
I
gives you the
do. I do.
basis of
Yeah.
it, right? Like it literally can be inherited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What that made me think of is, of course, my grandma. And,
Hmm.
she's 97. And
Wow.
yeah. So, at the time when she was born, when she was growing up, when she was raising her kids, life was really different for women.
Right.
And yeah, there's like this, women couldn't get a credit card till like the 70s. And that to me, it's something that I learned fairly recently, and it blows my mind. And so to consider my grandma and many of our grandmothers, like with so many kids, like my grandma had 6 kids, and that was kind of normalish then.
Right. Right.
And like, this husband and this, working just for her family, like being in the house, cooking the food, taking care of all the things, and all this pressure that she may have felt because perhaps she didn't actually have another choice. And so that's what I think of when I think of our grandmas who just were oppressed in so many ways.
Absolutely. What comes to mind, as you said about the credit card, is the driver's license. Like, can you imagine in today's world having children and not being able to drive them to where you need to go? Like, that's a huge, like, what? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
But yeah, to think about, you're right, like all of the pressures that they had, and the whole, what if they didn't have a choice, right? I think back then too, the I'll say the moral code of the day was you graduate high school, get married, get pregnant, have children, and for a woman you stay at home. There was no let's go to college, let's have a career path, all of that type of curiosity exploration that we get to do in today's
Yeah.
world. It was more your role was picked for you because you were a woman. So fear, yeah, absolutely can come all the way back from our ancestors to where we are now. So in thinking with that, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Please.
So because of your grandmother who had 6 children, were you when you decided to start this podcast, were you thinking, "Ooh, I can't really share my voice because she didn't really get to share her voice"?
So the podcast for me always came from a pretty even and grounded place. I always felt pretty confident in this is what I want to do. I can show up on the mic. That being said, I was not ready. And I didn't quite have the vision. I didn't quite feel like, ooh, I'm ready. There was a little hesitation and I just had to jump off the cliff, so to speak. And so I did. So there was that hesitation. I come up against fear a lot now with like, what's the next business I'll create? What's the next thing I'll create? What's, maybe I could hit live on social media and kind of talk about some things that are important to me. So those are the type of things now that bring up more fear than when I started the podcast.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So I'll kind of dive in a little bit because you kind of touched on something. So you said, I just need to jump off the bridge and hit record. So literally, physically jumping off the bridge and some to those types of things, that's a real physical fear. like fear of spiders or fear of traveling, like flying. Some people have a fear of public speaking, like they would never consider doing a podcast. So those are real fears, right? But then we have this underlying thing that you really touched on was the mental fear and the emotional fear. How often in society are we afraid to be vulnerable? Are we afraid to say, be the first person to say, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? And on the flip side of that, say, I love you. And I have a cat that likes to only join me when I'm on camera. Otherwise, get no attention.
I love her little position. She's like putting her tail over your head. It's so cute.
She's looking over my shoulder like, hello, I'm here. I am to be heard. So thinking about that with fear, looking back again, I'm going to take it back to our ancestors. Was our ancestors allowed to really speak freely? Or was there so much oppression holding them back so that the emotional fear was more like, absolutely not, you cannot say that? And part of my journey was learning that in my own life and my own family, and peeling away the layers of the onion that we all are, and really diving into going, got it. I lived in a house that was really funny, sarcastic. So I learned that sarcasm is really anger in a clown suit. So when I started to heal from my own journey and really looked at that and was like, wow, so none of us, I have two older brothers, both my parents and then my mom's mother, my grandmother on that side, none of us were willing to be vulnerable, to really say what we mean and mean what we say and not say it meanly. And so that's really all of the catalyst that really got me into where I am today in my professional career.
Yeah. So there's this filter that we put in front of everything we say, and sometimes the filter is sarcasm, sometimes it's passive aggression, sometimes it's just this like fawning, like, oh, whatever you want. And so we
Yes.
all have these like responses instead of the authentic, this is what I feel, this is what I need,
Yeah.
this is what I see from where I'm standing now. It's I can see that those conversations would be paralyzing for so many people. And the fear, feels like you're about to be attacked by a bear when you're
Right.
just trying to kind of stand in your truth and say what you see from where you are.
Right. Well, as we know from biology, the fear center is fight, flight, freeze. And in the coaching world, we've added appease for the people pleasing, right? And you're right. We do all of those things, and sometimes we can do them literally in like the same moment and not even realize we're doing it. But there comes a moment, an aha moment, if you will, when you recognize that the fear that you're feeling isn't in the present. It's fear of the anticipation of what might happen in the future, or it's fear of past experiences, which most of the time leads our decision making, especially childhood. Childhood experiences shape our adult decisions.
I want to talk about one of the things that trips me up personally, and I think a lot of people will relate to this.
Sure.
I have this battle internally of like, is it fear or is it intuition? Is this my fear talking or is this my intuition talking? Because I'm, as I grow, as I get older, as I get wiser, I've developed this really beautiful gift and skill of intuition. And so listening into, what it is that I need and, what it is that might be coming, not in like a psychic kind of a way. That would be cool, but I don't have that gift, but just in this knowing, right? And so what's your take on this? Like, is it fear? Is it intuition? And how do we tell the difference?
Yeah, so I love this question because it really gets into a spiritual component, I believe, with it. And I went through my own journey learning about this and really being able to discern is the word that comes to mind. So if we can take it to a spiritual side and if we take the religiosity out of the spiritual side and really focus on God, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it, I call it God, that's where intuition comes from. Intuition comes from a higher source, comes from God. Fear is the enemy stopping you because it knows you're going for greatness. So if you think about that and what you just said, the knowing, fear is when you're questioning and going, is this, who is this? What is this for? And there's a constant, like, the word upheaval is coming to me, but kind of a questioning, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And when the intuition kicks in, it's more about the knowing and the peace that comes with the knowing, because you literally can lean into and feel a sense of calm, peace. And also, I believe it comes to as you practice it and pay attention to it, because I feel like there's always an inner voice and it either helps you or it holds you back. And so the more that you lean into the side that helps you, you'll hear it more clearly. And then that way you'll be able to discern it more quickly, because it is a practice, right? And I'll also say this about the intuition. Intuition is the thought that everything is working out for you. Fear is everything is happening to me. So when you're looking at it from a growth mindset or a freedom mindset, which is the antidote of fear, then you shift your thought pattern like intentionally, consciously recognizing like, oh, I'm stuck in fear. Oh, I'm stuck in anxiety. Oh, I'm worried over here. Oh, got it. All right. So how can I see that I can shift this to where this is happening for me? And whatever direction I take, whatever, like you mentioned, the business steps, right? Whatever next step you take for your business is the right one. No matter what, it is. And you go from that with a place of, I mentioned it earlier, curious exploration. That way you're not attached to the quote unquote goal. You're more attached to the journey of what am I here to learn? How am I here to grow? Who am I here to meet? Rather than the, oh my God, I have to get this right. This has to be perfect. It isn't about the progress or the process. This is about, I don't want to look incompetent or inadequate or stupid, right? Yeah.
Yes. So put a pin in this, everybody, because this is so helpful when we are navigating life, just like anything, transitions and times of calm, all of it. Like, I think this is really, really important for us to remember, because what I heard you say is that intuition feels like love and fear is everything else. So,
Amen.
yes.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
And, it's good to have this reminder. It's, for the past decade, I've been unraveling the trauma and unraveling the patterns, the beliefs, the stories that no longer serve me. And still, challenges come up. Still, fear comes up. So I'm curious for you, does fear ever go away when you're living a big life and following your dreams?
No. In fact, especially if you've had some sort of trauma, which I believe that all of us have, then there's trauma, big T, trauma, little t, and I won't get into any of that because I don't, that's not my expertise. But I feel like we've all, in our brain, it's experienced some sort of trauma. And I don't ever think it goes away completely. I think it's just we get better at identifying it. And when we then identify it and we can see that we're triggered, we get better at asking for support or asking for what we need or looking or getting it ourselves, rather than sitting in it and stewing in it and ruminating in it. My backstory very quickly was that I was in an abusive relationship, was able to get out, started peeling away the layers and healing, learned how it was familiar. And I was like, oh, this is where the childhood experiences shape the adult decisions. Got it. Okay. How can I make sure I never do this again? And it was really about going, okay, what is it that I need to know that I don't know in order to move forward? And that's where that curious exploration came in, of trying to figure out, okay, what is it that I really don't know? Because there's a whole lot that I know, or I think I know. And then there's this outside of that, like, whole new world, right? And love, actually, that you're talking about, love was one of those things. I didn't know what healthy love looked like. It wasn't modeled in my family. Sarcasm was modeled, and making fun of each other and all of that was modeled. It wasn't an example of love. So to really find that, and I had an amazing support system to be able to find that those examples of love shifted things. So then I was able to feel safe in order to ask for what it is I need. Because again, with all the work that I did, the fear still shows up, but then it's like, wait, okay, what is it that I need right now? Because too, that's another thing that we don't really think about when we think of fear. When we're hit with fear, it's one, we're trying to try something new or do something different. If you're a lot of times could be in a dark place. I'll put it that way. And you feel like you want to get out of this dark place. And so it's almost like you've fallen into a hole. And every step you take is a new step out of your comfort zone, right? And fear will tell you that you're going to take 2 steps and then you're going to fall back, because that may have happened before. And so fear will remind you every single time that every time you take a step forward, you're going to be pushed back 2 more times. So it's the best thing that I have found is to make friends with that fear and be like, oh, welcome back, anxiety. Oh, yes, fear. Got it. Oh, yep, that's what you're doing. And then also knowing that now I have safe people that I've, found and realize what safe people look like over the years, and reach out and ask for support. Go, hey, I'm going through this and I keep getting knocked back down. So can I just ask for a hand up? Not a hand out. I just need a hand up.
Yeah. So one of the things you said is to reach out to safe people. So reaching out to community, reaching out to people who have your back. I'm curious if you have any other sources of how we can kind of generate that internal safety.
Well, absolutely. Like physically safety. So, make sure your physical surroundings are safe, right? Like, are you having a heart palpitations and you're around a lot of people? Is it too noisy? Sometimes we develop sensitivities to sounds when we've experienced trauma and we don't even realize it. We develop sensitivities to other people's energies. And if you're around a lot of people, you're picking up all of these different energies and you may not even be aware of it. So get outside by yourself, get into nature. If it's not, if it's in a parking lot, go find some sort of grassy area, but look for the sun, number one, or look for the moon. If they're not available, then find something green. And just by connecting in nature, those revive you.
Hey, it's me, Ryan. So, something I do every single day to invest in my growth, besides connecting with the humans on this podcast, obviously, is reading. Reading is where it all started for me. I was 5 when I became obsessed with books, writing them, reading them, collecting them. I love how I can get inspired with new ideas and stories and ways to grow. That's why I ask all my guests what they're reading. And finally, you can check out all the book recommendations from the experts and authors on the show in one place at raisingwildhearts.com/books. There are some life changers in there like You Are the Placebo, and a few hidden gems like Sacred Motherhood and Living, Loving, and Learning. So if you want to get your hands on your next great read, check out the full list by heading to raisingwildhearts.com/books. Okay, back to the show. Yeah, I love that suggestion. I love nature. I have learned to love nature. I wouldn't call myself like a nature lover from the beginning, although when I was a kid, I did. I just forgot for a really long time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And when I remembered, I was like, oh my God, I used to play in the woods and I used to dig in the dirt and I used to catch tadpoles, much to my parents' frustration, in the ditch outside of our house. And I used to do all these things, but so many years I forgot. And I thought, I'm not a nature person. I don't like it. But nature, Mother Earth has this energy. She's holding us. We're literally surrounded by Earth. And so to have that grounding energy, I love that. I would add in too, just for me, for others listening, breathing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. That was one of the first sources of safety that I was like, whoa, I feel so calm after this like yoga with breathwork class.
Yes.
Like years ago, I thought like, gosh, where did this come from? And I just like almost turned into a different person, like just from learning how to breathe. I remember one time, this was years ago, somebody asked me like, gosh, it seems like you're just like doing really well. And I'm like, I know this probably sounds a little crazy, but I learned how to breathe. And he was like, oh, really? He did sound a little crazy to him. But I remember really distinctly feeling like, oh gosh, I can get through so much more. I can step through challenges and at that time it was like traffic and work and, friends, like it's kind of these frustrations. And it felt a little easier.
Well, I love that you mentioned breath because I had forgotten it, but think about your breath and your thoughts are like on autopilot. Like you're not conscious of your breathing. You're just constantly doing it automatically, right? And your thoughts are going all the time. And sometimes you don't pay attention to them. They're just going. But when you become very conscious and intentional about what you're thinking and how you're breathing, you can then change it. So especially in breath work, right? A lot of times when we're anxious or anxiety, we're not around safe people, we're breathing from the chest only. And then leaning into, breathing, fully expanding our tummy all the way up to our chest. That's just a huge way to decompress your sympathetic, I believe it's your sympathetic nervous system. Same thing with your thoughts. Our thoughts will sometimes get away from us, and that's what's causing the physical reaction in the body, right? So if you're like having all these racing thoughts, this just happened to me the other night. I was up in the middle of the night awake, and I had all these racing thoughts, and I forgot. Like, oh, wait, I could have just connected to my breath and called back down. No. I had to get out. I removed myself from the environment hours later, and then finally got quiet, got still, got into the breath, and then the tension released. And I was like, oh, that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And it's so common because we are not reminded on a regular basis. Like we have access to these tools automatically in our body. We just forget that we have them.
That's right. And so many times these thoughts are producing the feeling, which is then producing
Yes.
more like panicky, frantic
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. And so it's this like spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And on one of the last episodes, we talked about metacognition. So
Mm.
noticing that you're thinking the thoughts, not trying to block them, stop them, shoo them
Yes.
away, just going like, here I am thinking these thoughts. Okay, these thoughts are coming. Yep, I'm still, just really noticing. And I think that, again, brings in a little bit of the spiritual aspect to it because who's noticing? Who's the one noticing your thoughts? Is it you? Are your thoughts you? It brings up these
Mm.
questions that can like get us to ponder a deeper meaning and a
Mm.
deeper sense of, this being held by something greater than
Mm.
us.
I love that. One of the things I work with my clients with is journaling. And I have them capture their thoughts. And some people, it's like, what are you even talking about? Like, I'm not thinking anything. And I go, I get it. This is if you're not used to journaling, it's very new and weird. And like, what am I gonna even think? I'm not thinking anything. What am I even gonna write about, right? And that's literally how you start. My first time I journaled was, this is stupid. I don't even know what I'm gonna write. I have nothing to write. And all of a sudden, this memory came up from when I was in middle school, and I wrote it out. And then as I was writing it out, it was like, oh my gosh, that was not an incident that actually happened. That was an anxiety attack. Wow. So it was all in my head, but I didn't understand that until I was journaling, which led me to the got it. We have capacity to capture our thoughts by physically writing it out. So then you're really understanding what you're doing to yourself. So our inner voice, we talked about a little bit earlier, can help you or hurt you. Well, if you're feeling like you're stuck in this vicious cycle, figure out what it is you're saying to yourself. So that is where you capture your thoughts. What are all the things you write? Everything that you say to yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, pretty enough, skinny enough, rich enough, all the things. And then look at it from a point of view like, would you say those out loud to your best friend? Would you say those out loud to your worst enemy? Would you say those out loud to the younger version of you? No. And yet, here you are saying them to yourself, continuingly to hurt yourself over and over again.
Yep. Yeah. Why do you think it is that so many of us have these internal voices of like, I guess I would just call it self-loathing or just this like really critical inner voice because like you said, we wouldn't say these things out loud to anybody. Like, could you imagine, And yet sometimes I'll catch myself looking in the mirror and going like, oh my gosh, you just like totally put yourself down again.
Mm.
Or, gosh, you messed up with something with the kids this morning and you're just like beating yourself up. I'm like making the thing continue. I'm making the moment continue by constantly beating myself up. And I think so many of us do this sometimes without even noticing. It can be unconscious.
Sure.
But
Yep.
when we do notice, like, what would you say to someone who's struggling with those type of thoughts that are just like really mean?
Mm. So I actually take this with my clients. So for an example, you talking about looking in the mirror and beating yourself up, and I'm going to say it that way. How often are we looking in the mirror and picking ourselves apart? Is it the words that you're saying to yourself coming from you, or are those words coming from someone in your past said that about you, and you decided to take them on as being true? That's what our conscious and unconscious does, right? So it's almost, I think, especially in a certain stage of life, and maybe it's 30 to 60 stage of life. Maybe some 20-year-olds probably are apt to doing this, but I think it's more as you get older, you're more aware of what's going on up here, right? And it's really about then looking at, oh, so you mean to tell me that that kid on the playground who was bullying me wasn't actually saying true things? He was lying. And then that's when you have to go, well, how do you know he was lying? It's like, well, hurt people because they're hurting. Right? So it's this whole like zoom out, look at it, zoom back in and zoom out again to really understand if you want to really understand where it's all coming from. You don't have to understand. You just have to know that all those things that you're saying about yourself are not true. I don't care what you've done in the world, because there's a lot of awful people who have done awful things. If you are saying these things to yourself, more than likely, you're not the one doing awful things. It's the people who are praising themselves, thinking they're better and higher than everyone else, that are more than likely doing the awful things. Look at narcissists, right? They're very insecure, and yet they're praising themselves like, oh, look, I did a good job on that. I know I did. And there's nothing wrong when you're coming from a place of authentic, genuine love for yourself, rather than trying to prove yourself to everyone else, which is what a narcissist does.
So this all brings up for me like thoughts of the playground, thoughts of being on the school bus. I had, which I've never actually really talked about on this podcast, but we're going there. I had definitely some, I guess what we would call today, bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw something when I was taking my notes on you, Shā, where you said I was bullied and then I became a bully. Not in so many words, but, and I thought, I have never heard someone go, I was a bully. Like rarely, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really unique and I loved that. So I want to touch a little bit about bullying. I want to talk about, I see it now with my kids. They're 10, 8, and then 3. But with the 10 and the 8-year-old, there are instances where kids are being mean. There are instances where I'm sure my children are being mean. And I think this word bully does get thrown around a lot. And, that's probably like a different show to kind of like dive into the dynamics of that and how we could solve it. But I guess my question is more like, how did you come to be able to like admit I was hurt and so I chose to hurt people? And then how did you really like grapple with that in yourself and overcome it?
Whew, what a question. And I love that you asked, because most people don't. So I got out of this abusive relationship, started on this healing journey, and it was started going to a Christian counselor immediately. And in that first episode, I'm used to a podcast. In that first counseling session, he said, so tell me what's been going on. And I told him, in a very quiet voice, by the way, I whispered it, most of it, right? He said, so you've been abused? And I was like, abused? Yeah, okay. And I would, like, it was not foreign to me, but it was as if I had such a negative connotation of what a victim looked like that I didn't want to admit that I was being abused. So jump ahead, several sessions later, we were talking about my role in the relationship. And we got to a point where I fought back. So it was a physical abuse, mental, emotional, financial, all of it, right? But I fought back physically. And then it got to the point where I could see where, I was going to instigate. I'm going to instigate it. And then it was like him pile on top, and then I pile on top, and up and up and up. And it was like constant back and forth. And one of the books I read is called Women Who Love Too Much, that I highly recommend for everyone who's ever been in a toxic relationship. It should actually be called People Who Love Too Hard, because it pertains to, I've referred it to many men as well, and it pertains to them as well. And from going back to childhood, it's that addiction to drama that we don't realize we have or that we've even done. And so in this counseling session, we're talking about, my part, my role in it. And he says, so were you instigating some of the fights? And I said, yes. And he said, would you consider that being a bully too? And I went, wait, what? And he was like, yeah, I mean, think about it. You were hurt. And what do we know about bullying? Bullies hurt people because they're hurting. And I went, yes. And as soon as I said yes, all of the memories coming back from middle school of, oh my God, I was the kid on the playground. I was the one on the bus. Like I was bullying kids younger than me. Holy cow. Like what an awareness. And so going back to the journaling, I mean, I had pages and pages and pages of what I did as a bully, who did I hurt, all of that. And it was very much a forgiveness letter to them. In fact, at one point, I figured out I was very angry. And a lot of times hurt will show up as anger that's unresolved because it's unresolved, right? So one day through my journaling, just happened to realize, oh, I'm feeling angry right now. And so I literally would sit with that. And at the time, my career, I was a hairstylist. And so my hairstylist would come in and sit in my chair and they're like, how are you? How are you? And so it got to me, how are you? I'd be like, oh, I'm angry. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, have you ever been angry? Like, what do you do with your anger? And so I'd ask all these people, most of them primarily women, but a lot of men too. And they're all professionals. And I would say, tell me what you do with anger. How do you release it? How do you talk about it? What do you do with it? And I found that women aren't taught to feel and show anger. Most of us shove it down with something. Could be alcohol, could be exercise, could be pills, it could be the beating ourselves up, sex, whatever. All the things, binge watching, but we don't actually know how to feel it or pass it through our body. Men sometimes will get physical. And by doing that release, it actually passes through your body and you're able to have some sort of, it's not stored in your body. Women, it seems like, will store things in their body and then later on in life, they'll come up with some autoimmune disorder. Mm-hmm. So for me, during this moment, I had been actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia and I realized I was angry. And I was driving to work one day and I turned on the radio and this pastor on the radio was giving a sermon and he literally said, as soon as I turned on the radio, do you have a list of people you're angry with? And I went, oh my God, that's what I need. I need a list. And so I literally am driving down the road and found one of those fast food napkins and, unfolded it 17 times. And I took a pen and I'm literally scribbling names as I'm driving down the road and flipped it over. And I'm still scribbling names of anyone who just irritated me or made me mad or had some sort of feeling about. I wrote it all down. And then I went, okay, great. What am I going to do with this list? Now that I have it, what do I do with it? And I decided that I was going to throw myself a pity party. Literally, those were the words I used. I'm going to throw myself a pity party by myself, take all my snacks that I love and have a junk food day and go through this list person by person and write out what I really wanted to say to them about the incident that happened. And then I wrote, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? And then I said, God, do you forgive me? And all of the list of people, if I had to guess, I would say there's probably 20 something people on this list. And I did that for every single person. And as soon as I did that and forgave not only them, forgave myself, asked God for forgiveness, the feeling dissipated immediately after this pity party was over. And I was like, wow, think about how much energy is wrapped in the feeling that we're unwilling to feel. And I thought, wow, this is groundwork for something I'm going to probably do later. I just don't know what it is yet. And that's just part of my process that led me into coaching and really looking at feeling the feelings that you're feeling when you're feeling them.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so much there. I love that people would ask you how you are and you'd say angry. I mean, talk about like disrupting a social norm, you know?
Right?
I love that. Like if we were all really honest when someone asked us how we are, like how interesting that would be in life, you know, in the grocery store or wherever you're going.
And we would laugh. They'd be like, oh, they'd be like, really? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you're going to put sharp instruments to my head. Should I be worried? And I'm like, no, I'm not angry at you. It's all good.
Yeah. So funny. So one of the things I heard you say is that you got to a part in your life, a reckoning moment with your therapist, and you had to ask yourself what part you played in all of this. And one of the things I've actually been asking one of my daughters recently when she's coming home and she's really frustrated with these certain kids and this is happening and, you know, so and so is mean and what's going on. And I have said and continue to say and will continue to say, what part did you play in it? And I think it's so important for our society.
Bravo, by the way.
Yes.
Bravo. Thank you.
And you know what? Bravo to my mother-in-law, because I asked her one time, I said, because she's got, you know, my husband and then he's got two sisters, three very like grounded, successful, like happy people. And I said, how did you raise these like humans who are like navigating life pretty well, like pretty damn well? And she said, you know, I never really treated them as if they could do no wrong. I treated them fairly. I treated them like they, you know, and so this, what part did you play in it came from this conversation with her. And I loved it. And so I will always ask my kids. And I think one thing that this helps do for our kids and our communities, our schools and our world at large is it helps erase this victim mentality.
Yes.
Right? This, why is this happening to me? Oh, so-and-so's mean to me. This feeling of powerlessness that you touched on before. This is happening for me. I have a choice in how I get to respond right now.
Right. Yes, all of that. Yes. In fact, I love that you just said the respond, because that was also a huge eye-opening moment for me, is that we have a choice. We can react or we can respond. And so react is like you're driving down the street and somebody slams on the brakes. So you react. A respond is, okay, let me think this through. How do I want to proceed?
Yeah.
And to be able to differentiate the difference was huge for me, because that's when, and I was still with my ex who was a toxic then, is that I didn't have to jump in and partake in the fight just because he was fighting, just because he was having a moment. I didn't have to engage. And so I chose to respond instead of react. And it was like, what is happening here? What are you doing? Because he had his own addiction to drama. So he couldn't, it was like a foreign object in the room. And with everything that I've studied with the brain and NLP and hypnosis, is that we learn that we are at cause. So whatever it is that we are experiencing in the world, we are at cause of that. So for me, I love that you're focusing with your children on what is my part, and not saying, how are you reacting or responding to the other person in order to make up their responsibility. And I'm saying that because, and let me say it another way. So being with someone, I was a codependent relationship. You become uber responsible for other people. didn't have any idea what boundaries were growing up, didn't understand any of that. And I was the youngest, and yet I was the peacemaker and the one who took care of everyone. I was the caregiver. So then going into relationship, I was still doing that. And so being able to differentiate, wait, so this is your issue. You brought it to me. So what is my part in it? And my part is that I don't have to claim anything you're bringing to me or take responsibility for it. My part is now I get to choose how to respond and think it out rather than dropping all my stuff and catching the ball that's thrown at you, right? Type of thing. Like now I get to go, got it. Just because you came out of nowhere and, said or did whatever you said to me, now I get to choose.
Yep.
And that, again, you're raising brilliant children, is coming from a place of consciousness rather than a place of ego.
Yeah, totally. And, kids do have this, I think that the stories they watch and read and, there's always a villain and there's always like a hero. And so many of these stories are woven throughout childhood. And so I think they really start to identify with like the bad guy and the good guy. Like
sure.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to see that play out in them. And I, as much as I would love to just like strip culture away and throw it in the garbage can, we're swimming in it.
Yeah.
And so even though we've taken an alternative education path and done so many things that are a little bit swimming up the river, we still are like in it. And so I think, my part that I can play is by asking these very simple questions. It's not a lecture. It's not a discussion. It's not a big thing. It's just this very small, consistent. That's the piece. They'll remember. Mom used to say, "What part did you play in it?" And it sometimes rubs them the wrong way, and sometimes they go nothing, and sometimes they think about it. But I think it's really important, and it brings up for me this sense of leadership and how we become leaders in integrity and doing the right thing when no one's looking, and maybe standing up for the kid on the playground, or not going along with the crowd. And I was talking to a group of mothers the other day, and they're having this issue with a group of school-aged girls, and some girls are leaving, of course, and some girls are leaving other girls out, and then there's like things being said that are perceived as mean. And we were kind of like diving into the weeds here, and they said, "Can you teach another leadership class?" Because I previously taught a leadership class for girls ages like 6 to 9-ish. And a lot of that was focused on self-discovery, learning oneself, creating movement. And they wanted me to kind of bring this idea to them and their daughters of like, how do we be a leader in the face of adversity, in the face of, well, I don't want to be friends with that girl, so what do I do? Right? I don't really vibe with that person, so what do I do? How do I approach this? And we landed on, ultimately, jokingly a little bit, that the parents needed a class, because the parents are hearing about all of these dynamics and all the things that are being said, and they're going like, oh my gosh, that kid said that to my kid. And then there's this kind of drama that's going on with the parents. And I said, so you're telling me that the moms need a class? And we were all kind of joking. So all of this to say, how do we touched on it a little bit already, but how do we model leadership in our homes, in our workplaces, in our communities in a way that's authentic and really impactful?
Well, you're doing it by love what you're doing. You're asking questions. Number one. And number two, what's coming up for me is the golden rule. Right? Do unto others as you would want done unto you. And then going back to, okay, so what was your place in this? What did you do?
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? I believe as leaders and as parents, we've done a disservice to telling people what to do rather than asking them questions to empower them. And so to find the best questions to ask and coming from a place of not feeding into the drama and having and choosing to respond rather than to react to the employee or the child or, whoever, and saying, so tell me more about that. How does that make you feel? Where's that showing up in your body? I mean, even that kind of conversation for a kid, like, where's that showing up for your body? They're going to be like, well, what are you talking about? And then the more they talk about it, the more they're going to get it. And then they're, as an adult, they're going to be like, wait, this is showing up wrong for me.
Yep.
And they're going to be more emotionally stable and aware of understanding. And when I say stable, I don't mean like even keel. I mean just more aware of what's going on rather than flying off the handle, so to speak, right? They're going to be able to regulate. That's the word I'm looking for. They have tools. They have tools and skills to regulate themselves. So I love that you ask questions. That's like my main thing and everything is, well, let's discuss this. What does this look like? What does it not look like? And how is it that, how can us as adults, just thinking about your parent situation, or your parent question, how can us as adults come from a place of no hidden agendas? Because our children, let's be honest, are not always the good kid. I mean, I was not, right? And my parents always looked at it like we were the bad kids. So, but if they had ever thought, oh, maybe this is the good kid, but just come from a place of neutrality and being neutral in the situation and saying, okay, let's unpack this and let's unpack it for everyone. And then normalizing the conversation of as children, I know this is never going to fly, but you never know. May I'll just say it, put it out there. Who knows? Maybe somebody will run with it and let you know that it worked great. Normalize the conversation of kids saying, we can still be in the same class and not have to be friends.
Correct.
We can be friendly.
Correct.
Doesn't mean we have to be friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's life. We're not friends with everybody we work with. We're not friends with everybody who we come in contact with. We're not. And,
right.
You do, feel closer with different people for different reasons. And so, I love that golden rule piece. My husband always says, treat others as you want to be treated. And, if we really, really unpacked that in our own lives, I think that would be good. Because I had a friendship that fizzled out and this person was so mad that I didn't talk to her. And how could you not? And I kind of ghosted her, for lack of a better term. And she's like, how could you not talk to me? And, if I were to reflect on that situation, how would I have wanted someone to approach me when they felt that, the friendship was coming to an expiration date and they were a little frustrated or didn't feel energized around me or whatever it might be? And how would I have wanted someone to approach me? And I think we can start these dialogues with school-age children of, what's going on here? I love how you talk about leadership in asking questions versus telling people what to do. That is powerful. And I could talk to you for 7 more hours, Shā. So let's just block off our calendars and do it. But we are going to start to wrap up. Before I ask you the 3 questions that I ask everybody at the end of the interview, how can we find you, follow you, and learn more about the work you're doing in the world?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for spending time with me and asking these amazing questions. And I love the conversation too. And yes, we'll just have to stay in touch and have a powwow often.
Totally.
So you can go to my website at shasparks.com. That's SHASPARKS.com. You can also go to my podcast page. It's the Shā Sparks Show.com. And I do have some resources on there as well. And social media, it's the Shā Sparks. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. And I would love to hear from you. Tell me, how much you love Ryan. I would love that. So I'd be like, oh, yes, I love her too. So we can, talk all the great things. And I just want to say something to what you just said. Teaching our children that every person has a season, and they're in your life. You're in your life either for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And it doesn't always have to be everyone is a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And at school age, they don't understand that concept because that's all they know.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And again, it's one of those things, if we repeat it enough, our kids will start to internalize it. We get to indoctrinate our kids, by the way, everybody. Like, we get to program our kids. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but inside the home, like, we really do get to shift the narrative into a positive way. And that's why I always say we get to change the world by starting at home, and it starts with us. And then it branches out to our kids and the ones we love and our communities and the bigger world at large. So yes, we're doing it, Shā.
Yes.
And you are doing it. And I am so curious now. I'll ask you the wrap-up questions. What's bringing you joy today?
The sunshine. I saw the sunrise this morning, and it was just, it's always, doesn't matter if it's cloudy or not cloudy. If the sun is rising, it's always beautiful. It's another chance, a reminder of another chance to start again.
Yeah. I love the sunrise too. Love it. Are you in Florida?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. I'm on the East Coast also.
Me too.
So I thought I saw that in you somewhere. That's awesome. Yes. Yeah. I go for sunrise walks quite often, and I agree with you. The next question I have for you is, what, if anything, are you reading?
Think and Grow Rich is what I'm reading right now.
That's a classic. A lot of people have dropped that one. All right.
Yeah. I'm actually doing a study with a group of people. So, yeah, accountability partners. Yeah.
That's Napoleon Hill, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. All right, and then the last question I have for you is, who or what has taught you the most?
God. Just journaling and talking to him. My journaling started out with that first journal as, I don't know what I'm doing, this is stupid, blah, 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 to immediately shifting it to a thank you letter to God and leaning into what I'm grateful for that he's done for me, done through me, done in me, done all the things. But also that's where the questions go. Like for me, like, what do I do? What's my next step? And without my faith and my spiritual relationship with God, I wouldn't be here.
That's beautiful. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Hi again, friend. If you're listening to this, you made it to the end of a Raising Wild Hearts episode. Yay! Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you can hear more amazing conversations just like this one. And here's the deal. If you made it this far, go ahead and hop down on your podcast app and rate and review the show. Your words and 5 stars truly mean the world to me. Thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for showing up and listening week after week. I will be dropping new episodes every Monday, so tune in then, and I will talk to you soon.